It was a chilly autumn evening in the heart of New York City. The streets pulsed with the usual rhythm of honking taxis, hurried footsteps, and neon lights flickering against the cold brick walls. Tourists moved with maps and phones in their hands, businesspeople rushed with briefcases, and street performers played their instruments for a few coins. Among this chaos, almost invisible to the crowd, sat a boy no older than 12. His clothes were ragged, his shoes had holes, and his small hands trembled as he clutched an old paper cup, hoping for a little kindness from strangers. His name was Ethan. For months, Ethan had been living on the streets. His mother had passed away when he was only 8, and his father, struggling with addiction, had disappeared soon after. Alone, unwanted, and scared, Ethan had learned to survive by sleeping in shelters, sharing scraps of food, and sometimes sitting on sidewalks with his cup, silently praying someone would notice. But Ethan carried something no one could see, something far greater than his poverty, greater than his pain. He carried a gift that had the power to move hearts, to awaken compassion, to change his life forever. Ethan carried a voice, not just any voice, a golden voice. He rarely used it, not because he didn't want to sing, but because the world rarely gave him the chance. Sometimes, late at night, when the city was quiet, Ethan would hum softly to himself, old lullabies his mother used to sing before life fell apart. Those moments reminded him that, deep inside, he was still a child with dreams, not just a boy forgotten by the world. One Friday evening, as the sidewalks filled with weekend crowds, Ethan sat on the corner of 42nd Street. His stomach growled with hunger, and his paper cup was still empty. He lowered his head, ashamed, until he overheard two teenagers laughing nearby. One of them said, "Why don't these homeless kids just do something instead of begging?" The words stung. Ethan wanted to cry, but instead, he remembered his mother's voice, "Never hide your light, Ethan. Even in the darkest times, let the world hear you." So, for the first time, he decided to try. With trembling hands, he took a deep breath and began to sing. At first, his voice was soft, shaky, uncertain. But within moments, the sound grew stronger, richer, and so unexpectedly beautiful that people stopped in their tracks. The song he chose was simple, but his voice carried so much emotion, so much raw pain and longing, that it pierced through the noise of the city. A businessman who had been scrolling through his phone froze. A couple on their way to dinner stopped mid-conversation. Even the two teenagers who had mocked him moments earlier went silent. Slowly, a crowd began to form. Phones came out, recording the boy who had, just minutes ago, been invisible to everyone. Ethan's eyes remained closed as he sang. It wasn't about money. It wasn't about proving himself. It was about survival, about expression, about letting the world feel the part of him that no one had ever cared to see. When he finished, the street was silent for a brief moment, and then erupted into applause. Coins and bills filled his cup faster than ever before. A stranger placed a $20 bill in his hand, whispering, "Don't give up, kid." But among the crowd stood a woman who didn't just hear his voice, she felt it. Her name was Sarah Williams, a former music teacher who now worked with a nonprofit helping underprivileged children. Tears welled in her eyes as she listened, because Ethan's voice reminded her of the students she used to mentor, the ones who needed just a little push to believe in themselves. She approached Ethan gently. "Sweetheart," she said softly, "what's your name?" Ethan looked up, surprised that someone cared enough to ask. "Ethan," he whispered. "Well, Ethan," Sarah smiled, "you have the most beautiful voice I've ever heard. Have you ever thought of singing on a real stage?" Ethan shook his head. I don't belong anywhere," he murmured. Sarah's heart broke, but in that moment, she made a silent promise, she would help this boy. She couldn't walk away. Over the next few weeks, Sarah kept returning to that same street corner, bringing Ethan food, warm clothes, and most importantly, trust. Slowly, Ethan began to open up about his life, his struggles, and his love for music. He told her how his mother used to sing him to sleep, and how he dreamed, even as a child, of performing on a stage one day. Sarah knew she couldn't erase his pain, but she could give him a chance. She arranged for Ethan to sing at a local community center's talent night. At first, Ethan was terrified. Standing in front of a crowd, under bright lights, felt impossible for a boy who had spent so long blending into the shadows. But when he stepped onto the stage, holding the microphone with shaky hands, he closed his eyes and let his heart guide him. The room fell silent as his voice soared. Every note carried his story, The loss, the loneliness, the hope buried deep inside him. By the time he finished, the audience was on their feet, clapping and cheering through tears. Among that audience was a journalist who wrote an article the next day, "Homeless Kid with a Golden Voice Brings Entire Community to Tears." The story spread quickly, and soon Ethan's video went viral online. People around the world watched in awe as this small, forgotten boy stunned everyone with the beauty of his gift. Opportunities began pouring in. Local TV stations invited him to perform. Music producers reached out with offers. But through it all, Ethan remained humble. For him, it wasn't about fame. It was about being seen, about knowing that his voice mattered. The most unexpected moment came when a famous singer, someone Ethan had admired from afar, invited him to perform a duet on national television. The night of the performance, millions of viewers tuned in. Ethan walked on stage in a simple outfit donated by the community, his eyes wide with nervous wonder. But when the music began, fear melted away. He sang with everything he had, his pain, his joy, his gratitude. By the end, the entire audience was in tears. The judges, the cameras, the world, everyone knew they had just witnessed something extraordinary. Yet, the story didn't end with Ethan's success. The true climax came when, after the show, Ethan looked into the camera and said, "This isn't just about me. There are thousands of kids out there like me, homeless, forgotten, invisible. If you're listening, please, don't just walk past them. See them, help them, believe in them, because sometimes, all they need is one person to give them a chance." That moment sparked a movement. Donations poured into shelters, organizations for homeless children gained new support, and people began to look at the children on the streets not as problems, but as potential waiting to be unlocked. Sarah, standing backstage with tears streaming down her face, knew she had kept her promise. She hadn't just changed Ethan's life, together, they had changed countless others. Years later, Ethan would go on to build a career in music, using his platform to raise awareness for homeless youth. But no matter how famous he became, he never forgot the nights he spent alone, singing to himself under the stars, waiting for someone to notice. And every time he stepped on stage, he carried those memories, not as scars, but as proof that even the smallest light can shine in the darkest places. Because Ethan was never just a homeless kid, he was a reminder that inside every broken story, there's a voice waiting to be heard.